Hi, I'm Nick, and I'm here to help you master building applications in PHP and Laravel. Let's talk about the factory design pattern. Here we have a diagram describing what the factory design pattern is and how we can use it. So in Laravel, we might have a job, a controller, or a command. That'll utilize this formatter factory. This formatter factory will have a function on it called getFormatter, which in turn will return a formatter interface. Now, this interface has two concrete implementations, one for formatting an array to JSON, another to format to XML. So let's go ahead and start building out what this looks like. And the first thing that I'm going to do is build the console command that we're going to use to just output stuff to the console so that we know that what if it's working or not. So PHP has a command to make console commands, and that is PHP artisan make command. And we're going to do array formatter command. And this console command is going to say format, and then we need to pass in the format that we want to use to format this array. So we're just going to call this formatter. And then let's change the description so that we know what it is. So format an array to the specified formatting type. And then down here is where we're going to do all the magic. So now in order to do anything in here, we need to first create the factory, the interface, and then the two concrete implementations that are going to implement the interface. So let's go ahead and create that interface. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a folder called factory pattern. And in here, we need to create an interface. So this interface we're going to call formatter. And for this particular formatter, when we start to talk about the different types of formatting, when we say we're going to format to JSON or we're going to format to XML, the one thing that they will all have in common is they will all need a format function. And in that format function, they're each going to take an array of data. And they're all going to return a string. So again, depending on the data type that you're going to be formatting to, these are all the same. So if you're going to be formatting to JSON, you still need the data in order to format to the JSON string. And likewise, you need that for XML as well. So regardless of the format that's being returned, we still have this that should be identical among all the formatters, which is why we're creating this interface. So let's say we want to format JSON from this array data. Well, we need to create that concrete implementation that's going to implement this interface. So we have our JSON formatter, and we're going to say it implements this formatter. And so this function was brought over from the interface formatter. So this one's super simple. We just need to return JSON encode data. And we already know that the JSON encode function is going to return a string. The next one that we have to do is XML. And this one's also going to implement the same interface. Again, this is the most important part here is that both the XML formatter and the JSON formatter are implementing the same interface. This is going to be very important when we get to the actual part where we're using the factory. So for this, we're going to say we have XML. And this expects any opening tag here, which is just going to be the start. And then what we want to do is we want to walk the entire array. Now this is just meant to show you kind of the difference between having multiple formatters in different ways. There are plenty of ways that we could format this XML into a string. This is just one way that I'm choosing to do that. So the first thing that we're going to need is we're going to need the data. And then we're going to use another array and we're going to say XML and then add child. And then we're going to return XML as XML. So let's go through this really quick. So we're creating a new simple XML element. This is how we could do this in PHP. And then over the entire data array, we're calling add child on this simple XML element. This is just how PHP allows us to call a function on this XML variable for each piece, for each item in this data array. And then this is how we can return a string from the XML. This is how PHP will convert the XML into a string for us. Okay, so now we've got the formatter interface and we've got the two different types of formatting that we're going to use. Now we need to create the actual factory that's going to return these items when we need them. So now we need to create the actual factory class that's going to return one of these concrete implementations, whether it's JSON or XML to us, when we ask for it, given a specific formatting type. So let's go ahead and create that class now. That class is going to be called formatter factory. This is going to have one function called get formatter, and it's going to ask for a string, and this is going to be the type that you want to convert the data to. So we're going to say formatter. And then another important detail is that we're going to guarantee that this function is always going to return the formatter interface. So no matter which implementation is giving back, it needs to return this formatter. Again, this formatter has this one function on it called format. And in this get formatter, we're going to use the match function. This match function is going to be matched on the formatter. And what we can do is if somebody gives JSON as the formatter, we can return a new JSON formatter. Somebody gives XML, we can simply do XML formatter. And if somebody gives something to us that we don't know how to process, we can provide a default and throw a new invalid argument exception. Okay. So to recap on this function, we're going to be able to call this on this formatter factory. This is the actual factory design pattern right here. It says that when we have a factory, we're able to give a particular type. And in that type, we're guaranteed this interface. And in this interface, we can have one of these two implementations. And if it doesn't get one of those two implementations, it's going to throw an exception. So now we need to actually implement this in our command. So if we go back to our command, and remember, we're going to be passing in the formatter in the command. So what we can do is we can let's new up a new formatter factory. So if we go formatter factory equals new formatter factory, and then if we do string output equals new formatter factory. Now remember that formatter factory has one function called getFormatter. That getFormatter expects a string, and that string is, remember, XML or JSON. So what we can do is this argument formatter. That's getting the argument from right here that the person's passing in from the command line. Now we can use this info and display the output. So let's go ahead and give that a try. But first, remember, getFormatter is returning this formatter interface. So we actually need to call format on the interface. So this is actually the formatter here. And this is the formatter, and we can call format, and then we need to give it some data. So we can say data1, data, let's go like this so it's easier to read. Data1, data2, and then let's provide a key pair. So a key value. And so remember, this is the data that's going to be formatted. And because when we call getFormatter, we're guaranteed that interface, and that interface has the format function on it. And then on that format function, it's expecting an array. And then we can just call this info because we know this format function is guaranteed to return a string. So let's try this command out. It is PHP artisan format. And then if we give JSON, it gives us that array data1, data2 key value as JSON, data1, data2 key value. Let's try that same thing with XML. Here's data1, data2, and then value in the key. And this is just how the PHP interprets the key value pair for the simple XML element. Let's say we gave it something that doesn't exist, like something else. Now this is the important part, that we're throwing this invalid argument exception because we always want to guarantee that the return type will be satisfied, otherwise PHP will throw an error, and we don't have a formatter for this. We could, by default, if we wanted to, we could return JSON or XML. That's also another option to use there. So again, let's recap the flow of this. In our console command, now this could be a console command, this could be an event, this could be a controller, this could be anywhere in the application. We're going to new up a factory. We're going to call the getFormatter on the factory. We're going to give it a string, and that string is going to give us back one of those two concrete implementations that we can then use to do whatever we want, and we're guaranteed to have the interface back. And then since we have the interface, we can call format on the interface. The job controller of the command calls the formatter factory. The formatter factory is giving us the formatter interface. And then again, we've got these two concrete implementations that do the same exact thing, but in their own respective ways, which is important because this console command should never really know how to format this array. If we wanted to add another formatting type, we can do so without touching this console command. This is a very important concept because what this allows us to do is only specific parts of the code base need to be changed, and they're only changed for one specific reason. This starts to get into the whole solid design principles. And because of that, it makes our code a lot less risky to update. And then this also allows us to write tests easier. So if we wanted to write a test for the JSON formatter, well, we could simply just pass in an array and then match the output of the string with what we expect. And the same thing with XML formatter. But we don't have to new up any other object. We don't have to new up a factory. We don't have to new up the console command to do this. A lot of people get stuck in putting all of the meat and potatoes in their console commands, in their event listeners, in their controllers. This is a way we can completely decouple how we interact with these types of things with our application, making updates, maintaining, and testing easier. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it was enjoyable and easy to follow. I look forward to making more videos in the future. If you could help me out by comment, and subscribing on this video, and I'll continue to make more.